Welcome back to the channel, basketball fans, where today we are pulling back the curtain on the hidden chess game that goes on inside an NBA front office. While the casual fans are entirely focused on the superstar performances, the highlight reel dunks and the MVP race, the true absolute die-hard basketball junkies know that championships are often won and lost in the margins. We are talking about the intricate, meticulous, and sometimes confusing world of roster management, salary cap gymnastics, and the relentless pursuit of financial flexibility. Today, we have a perfect example of this exact phenomenon playing out right in front of our eyes with the Boston Celtics. The Celtics just made a pair of roster moves that might not lead SportsCenter tonight, but they are absolutely crucial to understanding how a modern championship contending front office operates under the incredibly restrictive rules of the new collective bargaining agreement. We are going to break down the highly strategic signings of Dalano Banton and John Tonje to 10-day contracts and explain why these moves are actually a masterclass in exploiting NBA loopholes to save money while maintaining maximum optionality for the playoff stretch run. To truly understand why the Celtics made these specific moves on this specific day, we have to rewind the clock and look at the fallout from the NBA trade deadline. When the dust settled after the deadline, the Celtics found themselves in a very unique and somewhat precarious administrative position. They had consolidated some of their assets and moved some pieces around, which is completely normal, but it left their active roster sitting at only 12 players. Now, to the average fan, having 12 players might seem perfectly fine since only 5 guys can be on the court at one time and playoff rotations usually shrink down to 8 or 9 players anyway. However, the National Basketball Association has very strict rules regarding roster sizes to ensure that teams are employing a certain number of players across the league. The absolute bare minimum number of players a team is allowed to carry on standard NBA contracts is 14. If a team falls below that 14-player threshold, they are put on a ticking clock. The league rules state that a franchise has exactly 14 days from the moment they drop below the minimum to rectify the situation and sign enough players to get back up to 14. Well, Thursday marked exactly 14 days since the trade deadline. The alarm bells were ringing at the Auerbach Center. The grace period was officially over. Brad Stevens and the Boston front office had their backs against the wall and needed to make formal additions to the roster by the end of the business day or face potential penalties from the league office. But here is the catch. The Celtics are a team operating deep in the luxury tax and pushing up against the terrifying second apron of the new collective bargaining agreement. Every single dollar they spend is multiplied exponentially by luxury tax penalties. If they were to just go out and sign 2 random free agents to standard guaranteed contracts for the remainder of the season, it would cost the ownership group an exorbitant amount of money in tax penalties for players who might never even take off their warm-up suits during a real game. That is simply bad business. So how does a genius executive like Brad Stevens navigate this minefield? How does he satisfy the league rules, hit the 14-player minimum, and still protect the financial flexibility of the franchise? The answer lies in the beautiful short-term commitment known as the 10-day contract. By utilizing 10-day contracts, the Celtics are essentially renting roster compliance. They pay the absolute bare minimum prorated salary for just a week and a half of service, keeping their tax bill as microscopic as legally possible. And the players they chose to bring in for this unique assignment are incredibly fascinating stories in their own right. Let us start with the first addition, the return of a familiar face to the Boston locker room. The Celtics reached out and brought back Dalano Banton. For those who closely follow the team, Banton is a name that instantly rings a bell. He was actually with the Celtics organization during the 2023 to 2024 season. Banton is a highly intriguing prospect because of his completely unique physical profile. He is a legitimate point guard who stands at a towering 6 feet 8 inches tall. In a league that is increasingly obsessed with positional size and switchability on the defensive end, a primary ball handler with the dimensions of a power forward is a highly coveted archetype. During his first stint in Boston, Banton showed flashes of real promise. He proved that he could use his massive frame to pressure the rim, get downhill in transition, and cause absolute havoc in the passing lanes defensively. But the reality of that Celtics team was that they were simply an absolute juggernaut. The rotation was set in stone, and there were simply no developmental minutes available for a young guard trying to find his footing in the league. Because the front office needed roster flexibility for that specific stretch run, Banton became a casualty of circumstance and was dealt away to the Portland Trail Blazers at the deadline. After finishing that season in Portland, Banton has had a bit of a nomadic journey this year. He has spent the majority of the current campaign grinding it out in the G League, playing for the Texas Legends, which is the affiliate of the Dallas Mavericks. He has been down there working on his jump shot, refining his decision-making, and waiting patiently for another opportunity to prove he belongs on an NBA floor. And now serendipity has brought him back to Massachusetts. For the Celtics, this is an absolute no-brainer of a signing. When you are bringing a guy in on a 10-day contract, the hardest part is usually getting them acclimated to the playbook, the defensive terminology, and the locker room culture. With Dalano Banton, there is zero learning curve. He already knows head coach Joe Mazzulla. He knows the complex defensive schemes. He knows where the lunchroom is. He can step onto the practice floor on day one and be a productive member of the scout team, or even eat up some regular season minutes if the team decides to rest their core veterans like Drew Holiday or Derek White. His combination of ball handling size and his elite ability to get to the cup makes him a very viable emergency option off the bench. And if he absolutely dominates these next 10 days and proves he has taken a leap in his development, he could absolutely put himself in line to earn a second 10-day deal, or perhaps even secure a standard contract for the playoff run. It is a zero-risk, high-reward tryout for a player the front office already likes and trusts. Bringing in Banton officially made him the 13th player on the active roster. But remember, the magic number is 14. The Celtics still had one more empty seat at the table to fill before the deadline expired. To solve this final puzzle, they turned their attention inward to their own developmental pipeline. The front office made the decision to convert newly acquired shooting guard John Tonje from his two-way contract into a standard 10-day contract. If you are scratching your head wondering where John Tonje came from, you are probably not alone. He is a very recent addition to the Celtics extended family. Tonje was acquired from the Utah Jazz just a couple of weeks ago as a piece of the complex trade involving veteran big man Chris Boucher. Tonje is a phenomenal story of perseverance and collegiate success. Last season, he was an absolute standout playing college basketball, earning prestigious first-team All-Big Ten honors before ultimately being drafted by the Jazz in the second round of the NBA draft. At 24 years old, he is slightly older than your typical rookie, which means he is physically mature and mentally prepared for the rigors of professional basketball. Tonje is built like a tank, standing at 6 feet 4 inches tall with a strong physical frame that allows him to absorb contact and hold his ground against bigger players. He projects beautifully as a classic 3-and-D wing player, which is arguably the most highly sought-after commodity in modern basketball aside from superstar talent. Every single championship contender needs guys who can stand in the corner, hit, catch, and shoot three-pointers at a high clip, and then go down to the other end of the floor and lock down the opposing team's best perimeter scorer. Tonje fits that mold perfectly, but he has also shown that he is far more than just a stationary spot-up shooter. Since arriving in the Celtics organization, he has been sent down to play for their G League affiliate, the Maine Celtics, to get some repetitions and stay in game shape. And to say he has made waves in Maine would be a massive understatement. In his first 2 games wearing a Maine Celtics uniform, Tonje has been absolutely spectacular. In his debut, he exploded for 29 points and grabbed 4 rebounds, showcasing an advanced offensive arsenal and supreme confidence. He followed that up with another brilliant performance, pouring in 21 points and pulling down 7 rebounds. When a young player goes down to the G League and immediately dominates like that, the front office takes notice. You cannot ignore that level of high-end production. By converting his 2-way deal to a 10-day contract, the Celtics are rewarding him for his incredible play in Maine and giving him the ultimate nod of approval. They are bringing him up to the big club, giving him a locker next to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and allowing him to try and make his mark on the highest stage in the world. We have seen time and time again that there is a seemingly endless opportunity for young, hungry wing players who can defend and space the floor in Joe Mazzulla's system. Tonje is going to get a chance to practice against the best in the world, learn from elite veterans, and perhaps even get some garbage time minutes to showcase his defensive intensity under the bright lights of the TD Garden. It is the opportunity of a lifetime for a second-round pick, and it costs the Celtics practically nothing in the grand scheme of their payroll. But while we can analyze the individual skill sets of Banton and Tonje all day long, we have to take a step back and look at the macro strategy at play here. In reality, these specific roster moves are essentially administrative formalities masquerading as basketball transactions. The underlying truth is that Boston simply had to get their roster count up to 14 players immediately while navigating the incredibly punishing financial realities of the luxury tax. They accomplished exactly that by utilizing the cheapest possible mechanism available to them, which is 2 minimum salary 10-day contracts. But the brilliance of this maneuver is what happens next. These are prorated deals, meaning they are literally only valid for 10 consecutive days. When the clock strikes midnight on the 10th day, those contracts will automatically expire. Dalano Banton and John Tonje will become free agents again, and the Boston Celtics roster will instantly revert right back to having only 12 active players. So you might be asking yourself, what was the point of all this if they are just going to be right back where they started in a week and a half? This is where the true administrative genius of the front office shines through. By satisfying the rule today, the Celtics successfully reset the countdown clock. When they drop back down to 12 players after the 10-day contracts expire, the league rules grant them an entirely new 14-day grace period before they are required to sign players again. They are intentionally kicking the can down the road. They are buying themselves nearly a month of extra time to evaluate the landscape of the league. During this newly created window, they can scour the waiver wire, monitor the buyout market, and see if any unexpected high-level veterans shake loose from other franchises. They can evaluate their own internal health and see if they need specific positional coverages due to lingering injuries. By the time the second 14-day grace period finally expires, the regular season will be drawing to a close. At that highly advanced stage of the year, the prorated cost of signing players for the remainder of the season becomes a tiny fraction of what it would cost today. It is a masterclass in penny pinching for a billionaire ownership group that wants to field a juggernaut without paying catastrophic tax penalties. When that final deadline eventually arrives, the team can make their moves with absolute finality. They might look at how Banton and Tonje performed over their 10-day auditions and decide to simply sign them both to standard deals for the playoff push. They already know the system, they have earned the trust of the coaching staff, and they provide youthful energy. Alternatively, the front office might choose to reward different hardworking players from their developmental system. They have guys like Ron Harper Jr., who has been grinding away making a name for himself with his hustle and basketball IQ. They have Max Shulga, another promising prospect waiting in the wings, hoping for his moment to shine. The Celtics have intentionally constructed an ecosystem where multiple players are fighting every single day for that coveted final roster spot, creating a highly competitive and productive practice environment. And of course, there is always the looming specter of the veteran buyout market. Every single year around this time, we see older established players negotiate their release from losing teams so they can join a championship contender for the final 2 months of the season. By utilizing these 10-day contracts right now, the Celtics have ensured that their final roster spots remain totally open and flexible, just in case a former all-star or an elite specialist suddenly becomes available on the open market. They have maintained complete optionality. They have satisfied the complex and demanding rules of the NBA front office. They have given themselves a pair of incredibly cheap zero-risk flyers on two very talented young basketball players who fit their organizational philosophy perfectly. And most importantly, they have done absolutely nothing to hinder their future ability to pivot if a better opportunity presents itself down the line. It is a flawless execution of asset management and cap navigation. It is the kind of quiet behind-the-scenes maneuvering that does not make the highlight reels but ultimately builds the foundation of a sustainable dynasty. Brad Stevens continues to prove why he is widely considered one of the smartest, most forward-thinking executives in the entire sport. He understands that while the game is played on the hardwood, the championship is often secured in the spreadsheets. This was simply a remarkably solid, incredibly productive day of work for the Boston front office. They checked every box, mitigated every risk, and kept their eyes firmly planted on the ultimate prize of bringing another banner to the rafters. I want to know what you guys think about these highly strategic microtransactions. Do you believe Dalano Banton can realistically carve out a rotational role with his unique size and playmaking ability, or is he just a temporary placeholder? Are you excited to see if John Tonje can translate his explosive G League scoring numbers to the NBA level and become the next great 3-and-D discovery for Boston? And finally, do you think the Celtics are holding these spots open for a specific veteran buyout candidate later in the spring? Please head down to the comments section and let me know your thoughts, because I read every single one of them and I love seeing the basketball debates in our community. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of NBA roster building and want more highly detailed analytical content like this, please do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We are building the smartest basketball community on the internet, and we want you to be a part of it. Also, please be sure to smash that like button if you appreciate the breakdown, and absolutely do not forget to click the little bell icon to turn on your notifications so you are instantly alerted the very second we upload a brand new video. Thank you so much for watching, sticking around until the very end, and talking basketball with me. I will see all of you in the next one.